Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a 42-year-old mom of two who owns a business providing applied behavior analysis therapy to children on the autism spectrum. Prior to starting her bodybuilding journey at 37 years old, this athlete used to run, but then when she stepped on the stage for the first time at the Natural Ohio and had a nearly clean sweep of all her classes and won the Masters overall, she fell in love with competing and has since been working with Fit Body Fusion, competing in multiple regional shows and national shows. For 2022, she took a year off to focus on family, with her now 11-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter being her priority, before coming back in 2023, where she did a regional show and a national show, then had another go at Masters Nationals where she won her pro card in the 40 and up class. Welcome to the show, Sarah Bornemiss. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm happy you're here. And of course, I think it's so awesome that you and I, like, you competed at the Natural Ohio as your first show. I just competed there, and that's when we connected too, like right before I went into that show. So I just think that's so awesome. And I'm excited to talk with you about so many different things. And before we do that, I've got to ask you if there's anything you do, think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Honestly, I just say a prayer. I take a moment and I say a prayer to God, um, because I tend to get in my head and, I think that just kind of helps settle me. And if I have some teammates backstage with me who also, have are strong in their faith and they like to join in on a prayer, we definitely do that together as well. So.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Love that, actually. How does your relationship with God actually influence your actions and outlook when it comes to like the sport and life as a whole?
Yeah, I think initially I was a little bit not torn, but I had, such strong friendships and where we connected in faith and we prayed over each other, where they didn't understand this journey when I took this journey down the road and they were like, you're showing your body, what are you doing? And I didn't look at it that way. I felt like my faith in God only made me stronger. I mean, this sport isn't easy, as you know. I mean, there's a lot of, mindset challenges. There's a lot of things working against you, and life has difficulties that arise. So you have to have a strong faith to get you through those moments, because there's often times where you do want to give up, and it's like, no, like, you're trying to tell me something, like, give me some answers, give me some strong will. And I think that just kind of helps not only my strong mindset to begin with, but it definitely helps to have my faith when I'm feeling very down or defeated, or uh, in between shows and where I've taken years off. I've had like health issues, um and I'm like, what's going on? But it's like my faith has always kind of kept me at bay. So.
Yeah, it's interesting how bodybuilding or anything that requires a lot of us and forces growth and challenge in our life can either lead us more to God or it can lead us more to our own understanding and pride. And I find that competing is so humbling that it oftentimes has forced me to go, well, this is his plan. This is on God. I've got to lean on him. And he's always been there. And I can even say through wins, through losses, I find so much peace, especially now with my faith being so much stronger than it's been in past seasons. I feel a different energy, a different commitment. It's like I'm okay no matter what happens because I've got God as my identity, and that's what I'm rooted in. Versus a lot of times with competing, you can get so caught up in um, the external gratification and satisfaction that you miss out on a lot of the work God's doing through you. And it's unfortunate when people don't understand or when they judge you for that. Have any of those friends come around, or has it been like I lost those friends, I've established new ones?
I've established new friends. I think after this one friend in particular who kind of just didn't agree with what I was doing. She and I are no longer friends whatsoever, but she did reach out after my first show and said congratulations. But that was really the extent of it. I still don't think she truly understands any of it. But, you know, she that's her I have a different journey than she does, and that's okay. And but I will say this, I totally get your understand like your piece when it comes to being okay with where you're at in this journey, and what happens on stage is always God's plan, because that's how I felt last year. Last year was every year my faith has always continued to just get stronger. But I remember being at Universe and I didn't place how I wanted to or expected to. I got ninth place in 40 years old and over, and I basically last place in 35. And I just like prayed on it. 2 weeks later, went to Masters, and that's where I won my pro card. But I never felt more peace, if
Mm.
that makes sense. Like it was like God's timing. That wasn't my time, and that's okay. But I've had peace like stepping on stage. I didn't have like this anxious feeling, because it's all like honestly God's plan no matter what. And what am I doing and how am I being a representation of him through this whole process is probably um most what I'm concerned about. Like, I'm not doing this for clout or anything like that. I'm doing it to be an example, especially for my children. And also like a representation of, who I am as like a godly woman. So,
Oh, my mind's going to a few different places. So I'll start with the disappointment you experienced after Universe. And it's even difficult to use the word disappointment because I think sometimes that comes with it can maybe assert that you don't or didn't trust that that was God's plan for you, but you did, yet you can still feel disappointed. And that's something I've been navigating personally. And I'd like to learn from you and get some of your wisdom and insight from that experience. Like after you experienced that at Universe, how did you lean on God and really go, well, it is in your hands? After, you felt good. It sounds like you felt good going into Universe. You weren't necessarily expecting that. So how did you pray through that? And how did you eventually like get to the point where it's okay, I'm going to compete in 2 weeks, whatever happens is good?
yeah, so, I was disappointed in the sense of like disappointed in myself, because I worked so hard to get to that national stage. I mean, that wasn't my first national stage. I did like a few national
Right.
shows before that. And but this was my first time doing Universe. Um, and so just leading up to the show, I felt great, but like peak week, I don't know what it was. I was just having like digestion issues, core control, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So I was more so like disappointed in myself that like I I guess, I was trying to control the situation where really it was like God's control. Like that just wasn't my moment. And that's okay. But I just felt disappointed that like I somehow couldn't control these variables no matter how hard I worked for it. And so I just like I left the next day, prayed on it, and I was like, okay, 2 weeks. What are we going to do? I prayed to God. I also, just did a bunch of research of like, okay, what are the foods that I'm eating? I just kind of took a look at the things that I can control, and then let God do the work that really like ultimately was his plan.
Absolutely love that. I think it's important to when you consider like what you said about, am I an example to my kids? Am I radiating that light? Am I representing God through this journey? And your faith as a woman of God, like that identity as well. When you had won your pro card and you finally achieved that goal, did it change anything about your role as a wife, a mother, business owner? No.
I don't think it necessarily changed my role. I think it just solidified like you can achieve anything through like hard work, dedication, consistency. There's always going to be doors slammed in your face. And that's something I want to teach my kids, especially when they're athletes. So, and things like that is like things aren't going to come easy. And like you have to have faith not only in yourself that you can overcome anything, no matter the situation, but as my son is a tr- athlete and everything, but he experiences emotions when he doesn't perform the way he chooses to do. And we're like, you need to, it, first of all, no matter what the situation occurs, like that, we're going to love you no matter what. And whoever is in your corner is going to support you and love you and be proud of you no matter what. But at the end of the day, this is God's work. And if you didn't hit in your baseball game, that's what God wanted. And so that's what I just try. It doesn't necessarily, going back to your question, it's not necessarily after winning my pro card, did it change my role? I think it just made me stronger in my faith,
Mhm.
while just like really pushing forward and continuing to try to be an example for my kids of like, things don't come easy to me. I've had to work for every single thing in my life. And there's situations where they could have broken me. I get, there's some negative naysayers out there, like, but I'm strong with who I am as a person, and I know who God views me as,
Mhm.
and like, I go after my goals no matter what, and that's it. And I do it with a smile on my face too, because that's what Jesus did, you know,
Exactly.
like I'm not gonna, no matter the situation, I'm gonna treat people kindly. I'm going to show up when I say I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna hopefully like show my kids to do the same thing.
That's so beautiful, Sarah. I'm really loving everything that you're saying so much. Transparently, it's refreshing um, to hear you speak so strongly about your faith and how you represent that, not just in your life, but for your children. I think it's a you're a great example of how you can use those challenges and having to work very hard in your life to just say, it's okay, because I would choose to do these things anyways, and I'm going to be joyful in that process. Sometimes I think we forget that we chose to do this. We forget that we chose this lifestyle, we chose these habits, and actually we continue to choose it because of how rewarding it is. So even through those difficult days, just like Jesus, he knew that the work that he was doing was for the ultimate good of God and of his plan and of his purpose. And he was going to fulfill that purpose, even with betrayals, even with heartbreaks, even with temptations. He never took his eyes off of the purpose, even with the naysayers, even with having to give the same exact spiel over and over again to people. He was true and true and true all the way through. And you've shared, not just here, but even through posts and things that I've read of yours, how important it is to leave this legacy for your children that really reflects not just the hard work, the discipline, the pushing through the challenges, but also your character that you describe here and chasing those dreams. So I'd love if you could share some of the habits that you have on a consistent basis that you feel really benefit you in doing this, and maybe even that you would hope your kids embody and take on for themselves one day.
Yeah, so I'm a very routine oriented person. Like I strive on routine. If I don't have my routine, like spring break, things like that, which I still go on prep, not in prep, I do it for my family. Um, I will maintain as best as I can routine. But I'm a behavior analyst, so I own a business where we provide therapy to children on the autism spectrum. So I'm very like just how I want to prepare like the kids that we work with and the families that I work with, like I see a big goal and I just break it down into smaller increments. So that way I am successful. So I lay out my clothes well, not in the moment because we're in the middle of home renovation. So I'm a little bit thrown off here in that sense, but I would have my clothes laid out at night. I have my nighttime vitamins, like all my vitamins are every Sunday I get them organized. So that night I get out my nighttime vitamins and then I have my morning vitamins sitting out on my counter with my water cup for the gym that has my glutamine, everything already in it and prepared. And I like no matter how tired I am, I'll set like 3 alarms just in case, but I'm typically up by the first one. Um, and I prep all my food. I have it already ready, so there's no um like temptation there. And I am a planner. I write everything down. I make sure I like cross everything off, and I do that with everything in my life. Obviously, I need to be prepared for the unknowns and I need to be okay when things don't go my way, such as like spring break when I got norovirus and all my food was thrown out and I was literally left with maybe like 3 tuna packets, but I had to like figure it out because
Yeah.
that's also life too. Like, how do I problem solve here and talk to whoever I could and get egg whites plain or plain chicken with just lettuce, like things that I knew that wouldn't get in the way of my ultimate goal. But I just like plan accordingly while being prepared for the unexpected change too.
So I love this because you being a behavior analyst, you are going to be very behavior minded. You're going to think, okay, if I set this up this way and I have these behaviors, then X will lead to this, like this A plus B equals C. That's the behaviorist in you. Like
Yeah.
you go, yes, your mindset and your cognition and your thoughts and your beliefs matter, but if you don't have the behaviors in place, it doesn't matter. And I really love this because I'm a clinical mental health counselor. And some patients, and some clients, I have to really just focus on think there's a behavior issue here. Like there's certain things you're doing or not doing that's causing this repetition in maybe it's failure or maybe it's success. And then we use that. But you also then touched on you also need to be prepared for the potential of having to adapt. You have to be willing to adapt. And I think that is more indicative of mental conditioning that's done through the development of behaviors. So, for example, because you're used to making the decisions you're used to making and you do that on autopilot because it's become part of your daily behavior and it's natural for you, you created this mentality of you make things work, you find a way, you enjoy this lifestyle, you always get through. Okay, so you have this set of beliefs that come from those behaviors. Now you're on a trip, you get sick and you got to deal with it. You're able to more seamlessly because well, it wasn't just the behavior, but it was all of the beliefs you established along the way. And similarly, I went on a cruise last year, brought my scale. And by the way, I already started prep, but my coach knew like, okay, we're gonna be on a cruise. But I was like, I'm gonna prep through this. Like, it's not a big deal. Had my scale and everything, and I was prepared. And then I lost my scale. It was like 2 days left of this cruise, and I was like, no way. But it didn't matter because my behaviors for so long have been weighing, tracking, measuring, nourishing my body well. I wasn't concerned at all about its impact. And that I think is an important note because you can either adapt with fear or you can adapt with acceptance. Like maybe this won't be perfect, but I'm still doing the best that I can. And I'm curious if you've ever been in a situation where you've been challenged so much that it's actually made you go and self-sabotage or go back on your commitments to yourself.
You know what? Fortunately, no, that's never happened. Only because um my history and how I grew up, I had to I mean, I love my parents obviously, but my upbringing wasn't the best. And so like I had to really fend for myself. And so I never had an opportunity where I I self-sabotage. Even
Because
like,
you're in charge of yourself.
yeah, I've been in flight mode for such a long time. Like I had to learn to take care of myself. Maybe that made me grow up too quickly. Maybe that made me really like rigid and routine, but that's what has led me to like the success of my business and everything like what I'm doing. Like it's just kind of how I grew up, and it's what made me strong, like mentally strong. Like I don't waver from my goals whatsoever. Like as an example, I did 2 water births for my kids. I was like, I'm not having an epidural. I'm doing this naturally. And unless like medically my kids needed to come out a different way, I was like, I'm no matter what, I'm having these kids in the water naturally. And I did it. And it's just like, but I also, again, going back to how I am as a behavior analyst, I prepared myself like 20 weeks out and like mindset and trained my mind to like overcome when things got difficult. And that's just who I am as a person.
So let me sidebar this. What did you do 20 weeks out from your water births that?
I did hypnobirthing as my birthing class. So like I would at night sit out and like listen to like this music of and it kind of emulated kind of what a contraction would feel like. It's like you're going up a
Mm.
mountain and it would get really like that's how did you describe contractions for me essentially, but like go up a mountain, things get really, really hard and it hurts the most at the top and then it comes down. And this music kind of like did that. But I sat there and I just trained my mind to like be able to breathe through like when I were to go in labor, I just like trained my mind to overcome difficult moments. And so I did that every night. And then when I got closer, I did, my husband and I did a bunch of different like techniques to kind of help if I were to get back labor and things like that. And I worked with a doula too, but it's just, I didn't even like sit proper like posture. I didn't like slouch. I didn't lay down. I sat up straight with a pillow, even though no matter how tired I was, because I wanted the best position for the baby to prevent like back labor and things like that. It's like, it's crazy. I just study all this stuff and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to make my life easier? And this is what I'm going to do.
So I'm asking this because I would love to be able to do that myself one day. I think that's really amazing. Nothing against it being done another way. I just think that's really awesome and being open to right adaptability.
Yeah.
But do you play that music while you're going through the birth experience, or that like okay, that's what I was
Play the
wondering.
music. I have like my little LED candles. Even like at 20 weeks out, I found a essential oil scent that like calmed me because I knew like, when your body's in pain and you get all tense and I needed something to calm me. So I found whatever essential oil that it, for me would make me feel more relaxed. And my husband put it out all throughout the hospital in our room when I was in labor. And it's like those little things that
Oh,
you do. And I mean, still to this day, like when I take baths, I have like that essential oil um in there too.
it's
So
awesome. Yeah, you pretty much created anchors for yourself to go back to in that difficult time. You go back to like all the conditioning you did. which is so similar to a prep in many ways, honestly. Like you're 20 weeks out, you're like, what's going to make the end easier, right? So you maybe did this preparation before getting pregnant, like an improvement season, but you're preparing your body and then you got pregnant. Okay, now we're in this process and we're going to get to a certain timeline. Maybe that timeline could change. It's not 100% going to be on this day I'm stepping on stage or this day I'm giving birth, but I know over the next 9 months is going to happen. And then you prepared yourself accordingly. And it's just so similar. And you said that you are a creature of habit. You really thrive on routine. Um, but what does it look like when you go into what you've called life mode or life season, where you kind of allow yourself to get a little more relaxed and embrace all that life has to offer? But like, what do you do to be in life mode, but also and let go of some of the rigidity, but also maintain your physique and your focus there?
Well, I still, because of I have Hashimoto's, which I found out this past summer, I still try to eat fairly clean because I know how I feel when I don't eat, like when I eat certain foods, and I don't want to feel like that. But when I'm in life season or life mode, hey, we're so busy with my kids' sports schedules or family vacations or whatever it is, like that while I may not have my food prepped, we go out to eat. I know how to order my food. But I may have a dessert and I may have this. Do I feel guilty? No. Obviously I wouldn't do it on prep, but I'm able to go out in these moments and not feel guilty whatsoever. I'm able to show my kids, like, because I also have a 13-year-old daughter who is very big in social media and what the world is telling her what she needs to look like. And, you know, I don't want her to think that she needs to look a certain way or weigh a certain weight. And I always try to explain to her, like, I'm doing this because there's a goal in mind, and that's strictly for stage. Me being this lean during prep is not how anyone should look in like life, or life season, or whatever I'm doing, in that moment. So try to like be an example for her and show her in particular, like I don't want her to look at food as like an enemy. I want you to stay active. Yes. I want you to stay healthy. I also want you to choose foods that are going to that are just healthy in general. Like, the dyes and things like that. Like I try to establish like good eating habits because eventually I'm not always going to be around them. And I just want them to be healthy and make wise choices.
I think that's really powerful. Like I've been having conversations with my stepson where he'll ask something about like the prep or what I'm doing, or they'll talk about like their body. And I tell him, I'm like, I choose these foods not just because I'm in prep, but because I would choose them anyways for function, performance, how I feel. And if you do want to achieve a certain like external look, that's totally okay. But it's the bonus, it's not the focus. And it comes as a result, but it should never take precedence over like how you feel and function. This is like a short period of time. And I think using the opportunities to teach, like, okay, I am enjoying this food. I like this. This is my choice. And also, my lifestyle will look different. And there will be a time where I'll say yes to the chips and salsa when we go out. But right now, it's not that time. And that's okay. Um, but I am wondering how you approach things like events or family experiences when you're in prep versus when you're not.
Yeah. So when I'm in prep, my family they know like I'm very routine. So we'll go out to dinner. Easter actually this year I'm planning on making dinner. Sometimes we'll go out to brunch and I'll just get like egg whites and coffee and that's all I get. And my family they totally get it. My son is like, "Oh, mommy's on prep." Um, but family functions or an event or things like that, if for some reason I don't have my food with me, again, I know like, okay, I need a plain piece of chicken. this is what I know how to, I just know the
Mhm.
foods that I eat and I know how to order it. And I may not have my scale with me to measure ounces, but been doing this for so long, I think I can eyeball in those moments. Would I do it this close out to a show? No. When I'm like 12 weeks out, and that's a little bit different. But my family, they just they know who I am and they know
Yeah.
how I function. And so they just roll with it. Like as an example, my son had a baseball tournament last weekend and the whole team went out for pizza in between games. And I had my little lunchbox with me in my cooler and like no one thinks anything of it. Like the group I'm around, the moms, they're like, oh, good for you. You're more disciplined than I am, but I just make sure I'm prepared for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And
You know,
life mode, again, I eat because I eat the same things because for so long I grew up not feeling okay with the foods I ate. My stomach hurt, or, I had everyone's like, oh, you're lactose intolerant. Oh, this or this. And I'm like, no, foods just always hurt my stomach. So now I know like what fuels me right and what I feel good eating and I enjoy it. So and I work hard in the gym and I want to fuel myself with the right foods. So I eat like this year round. I just add a little bit of dessert here and there when I want to, or, birthday parties. If I want a piece of cake, I'm going to have a piece of cake when I'm in life mode. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I love that so much. Like your priority is to nourish your body and be present no matter what. And sometimes that looks like having a piece of cake in life mode, and sometimes it doesn't. And either way, it's okay. In a podcast with my friends Mandy and Jillian, you shared that prior to competing, you felt like you weren't living a super healthy lifestyle, like not eating much despite being a marathon runner. So, can
yeah.
you tell us more about how your lifestyle with food and family time and body image has maybe looked now as a professional athlete compared to before you got into competing?
Yeah. So, I mean, while I ate certain foods, I didn't nourish myself with the right amount of foods. Growing up as a girl, as a female, you hear all these stories about how you should look. And, not that I really focus on social media because, when I was younger, social media wasn't really a thing back then, but, you have magazines, you have like, this is what someone should look like. Um, and, even like when I was pregnant with my son, as an example, like the one nurse, and he's my second, and an August baby in Atlanta. So I'm, hot and carrying a lot of water weight. And like the nurse is like, oh, you gained a lot of weight this week, like things like that. And so was always just like really conscious of weight gain or what I look like. And, I would have a dad who would make comments sometimes too. So I was always just like, I just never felt like good enough. And so I would always like watch what I ate. And like even before a big run, I wouldn't eat carbs when I needed carbs to sustain like that long distance running. And
Hmm.
so it's crazy. So then when I shifted over into bodybuilding, and my first coach that I ever had was like, you're going to eat more now than you ever have. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. And that's like started eating more food, my weight like dropped, but I felt good. And that's when everything kind of just shifted for me. I felt good.
That's so awesome. It takes a lot of trust to do that and make that shift. So, what inspired you to change from running goals to bodybuilding?
I don't know. I was in actually in the middle of training for a race and I remember just running. I was like 10 miles. I'm like, I'm not finding joy in this. Like
Hmm.
I'm running because I have to run to train to get because the end goal is I'm running a race and I want to get a certain time, but I wasn't finding enjoyment. My knees were hurting. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to feel like I'm forcing myself to do something. Like I don't ever want to say, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this because I really don't have to. I chose that. So when I got to the point of not enjoying it, that's when I was like, I want a different challenge. Like I like to challenge myself. I like to push myself to limits. It's just how I thrive. And that time I was following a lot of bodybuilders. Jennifer Dory is an example, Laura Lee. I just started working with like a local coach in that moment. And I was like, bucket list of mine, let me do a show. Um, my husband at the time was like, what? You never spoke about it. So in that moment, he didn't get it. He does now, and he's totally supportive of it now. But he didn't understand. But for me, it was, I don't know, I felt like this was a journey that I wanted to explore. Whether in the moment what it was a bucket list thing, but then it changed into no, like I truly love this. It's even more so like I'm a behavior analyst working with children on the autism spectrum. I now want to move that into like the fitness industry because this is such a like there's like a mental and a behavioral component of, being successful at reaching your goals, no matter what it is. But there's a lot of people in this who are looking for a healthier lifestyle and they don't reach their goals in 30 days. And that's when they fall off the wagon. And it's like, no, you need to approach it differently. And so it's just, I don't know, it's so interesting how this little bucket list turned into like a really big passion of mine. And even some more so like my kids love it. And they're like, Mom, I can't wait to go to the gym with you sometimes. And we have a home gym, so I'll work out with them there too. But it's something that I think that my family and I can like bond over and just, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
something.
That's super special. And with the confidence and strength you've found in this sport, would you compare and contrast for us the two journeys? So being a running athlete versus a bikini athlete, like maybe the strength and the confidence that came, like how would you compare and contrast that?
Yeah, so I think with obviously you have to train for a marathon. You had to run X amount daily. You had to fuel your body, which I did not do. So that's what the difference between these two situations. But the end goal for me for running was to beat a certain time. The end goal with this whole bodybuilding thing is to step on stage, obviously bring a better physique every time, and take the judges' feedback and to implement what they gave you feedback wise. But I think both situations, the where they're similar is just you have to be so disciplined to do this day in and day out. You can't just say, you know what, I'm going to do this and just show up. Like that's just not how it works. Like you have to take in the time, you have to put in the effort. When you're running and you hit like mile 13 or mile some X amount and you want to give up because your knees hurt, you're tired, whatever it is, no, you keep going. You don't give up. And that's the same thing with bodybuilding. You're working out and you're so tired and you just want to stop. No, you keep going. And
That's-
so that's where they're similar.
Was it weird for you to go from like running all the time to then being told to eat more and focus on lifting and not do cardio?
Yeah, I ran all the time and probably weight trained twice a week to um slowly like weight training every day and then obviously my cardio for during prep and stuff like that. But totally different experience. Like remember like working out and I was like weak as heck because like I never really worked out, which I
Right.
probably should have to grown like stronger legs for running.
Yeah.
But running for me, I started even too later in life after I had my kids as a way to lose the baby weight and but I didn't have childcare. So I would push my kids in a double stroller while training for races too. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's impressive.
so yeah,
Do you miss running?
no. No, I don't think my body could. It was so hard on my knees.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable. I mean, I'll maybe run here and there during prep, but no, it's not, I
Yeah.
don't look at it. I don't enjoyable anymore. So,
That's fair. Now, in 2022, you had taken time off for your health and family. What did you have to navigate during that season what did you have to navigate, period? And then also, what do you feel from that season actually led you to the success of earning your pro card?
yeah, so that season, well, 2021 was North Americans was my last show. And then 2022 hit, and then it was like my body just kind of shut down. Like I started to not feel great. And then we did blood work, and basically my hormones were shot. I was in perimenopause. I mean, my body was just like going through it. I was tired. So we started hormone treatment, hormone therapy just to get my body back to normal levels. But that just didn't, but that made me feel terrible. Like then I felt puffy because then my estrogen shot up. It was just like a roller coaster. And I'm like, it's like you work so hard for your body. I follow my reverse to a T. I never waver. And like this again was out of my control. And I was
Yeah.
like, um, and then on top of that, my daughter was just going through some hard times. It was coming out of COVID. Um, she was in fourth grade, but she was just, I don't, she went from being so happy and sweet to angry all the time. And she was talking about how she wanted to kill herself. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, and she was just not her happy self. She wasn't Nadia. And so my husband and I were navigating that. And my husband was also going through some work changes where he was no longer with the company that he was working with for 20 years. And so it was just a lot coming down all in one moment. And so that's when I was like, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break. I didn't track a single food. I didn't take check-ins. I just solely focused on more so my daughter and my family. And then I was like, as long as I follow my plan, my health will come back. It will. And it did. And then, we got my daughter in to see a psychologist, and she's thriving now. And obviously now we're in the, teenager years. So that's a whole other issue. But um I had to make sure she was okay. So,
Absolutely. At that time, did you feel that you would ever come back to competing, or were you like, I'm probably gonna be done forever?
no, I wanted to come back. I missed it. I miss like the holding myself accountable, check-ins hold you and plugging in your food every day. Like that holds you accountable. And I just like working for something. I like a goal. And so I knew I was going to come back, just didn't know when. And then when things started to kind of turn around and I was like, okay, I'm ready to resume with coaching again. And then we were like, let's see 2023 looks and go from there. And then 2023 came and we started prep, and here we
And
go.
you did it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. What a journey. I mean, I think this is a very important point actually, because you didn't let bodybuilding distract you from what your kids needed or what your husband needed. You were able to say, I could take a step back. I don't like this is not the time for bodybuilding. This is a different time that demands more of me here. And that's not to say bodybuilding takes away from your family, but your family needed you more.
Yeah.
And you were able to step away versus like, oh, I can't live without having that commitment to bodybuilding. I can't focus. Instead, you're like, I can set that aside. I can always come back to it. That
Yeah.
really shows like that mentality of acceptance and also knowing like life will change and throw things at you. And this is a lifestyle at the end of the day. And you were able to support your daughter. And also, you've really had to navigate supporting your son as well. So, can you tell us about him and maybe what you learned? Because I've really enjoyed reading your posts about your children, like how much you learn from them. I think that's a really cool thing. But you've shared that he has a processing disorder, which I believe you've referred to as mixed receptive expressive disorder that requires him to do weekly therapy. But he's incredibly involved with his sports and his community. He seems so bright. So, talk to us about like what you've learned from him and maybe how this has just influenced you and your career too.
Yeah. So let me back up too.
Yeah.
So Chase, my special little guy, um, he he just inspires me daily. Like the drive, I hope to say that I'm an example for him and my daughter, but even before I started this bodybuilding journey, he's always been a fighter. Prior to his second birthday, he drowned, where I mean he was basically dead.
How did that happen?
Um, we were at our community pool and we were living in Atlanta. Long story short, it was our last weekend in Atlanta prior to us moving to Raleigh. And it was kind of like a goodbye with all of our neighbors.
Yeah.
And my son is a no fear kiddo. Like he has no fear. Um, and we had just taken him out of the pool, took off his puddle jumper. Um, and this was coming out of he was doing swim lessons too, and which a lot of kids that he did swim lessons with hated it and were crying because this particular individual we worked with for swim lessons made all the kids jump off the diving board even when they didn't want to. My son loved it. So long story short, we took off his puddle jumper as we're getting dinner ready. He somehow snuck away from us, and I'm a helicopter mom, so like there's still to this day where I have extreme guilt over the situation because I could have lost him. And do I feel like maybe his processing disorder is stemming from that accident where he had a lack of oxygen for who knows how long he was underwater for? Um, he was in front of a lifeguard too. Like, and the lifeguard did not even catch him. But this is where when my faith with God, like I grew up Catholic and it's actually steered me away from the church. But in this moment, this whole situation was what changed my life around and made me follow Jesus even more. And I owe everything to God. So anyways, we were getting dinner ready and talking to neighbors, and a voice spoke to me. And it wasn't a voice at the pool. All I heard was Chase. And I was like, I said, Jeff Chase, and we're running all over the place. And my daughter was the one who actually found him. And she was 2 and was like, Daddy, Chase. And so he was at the bottom of the pool in front of a lifeguard.
Mm.
And so my husband jumped in, pulled him out. Long story short, he came out, he was purple. Um, Thankfully he came to, we went to the hospital. Um, and it's literally by God's will that Chase is here and he has a plan. I know he has a plan for Chase. And even so, I know you're a Christian woman. So 2 years later, when we're now living in Ohio, my son out of the blue was like, Mommy, when I was in the bottom of the pool and he couldn't barely speak, but I could understand what he said because I'm his mom. So I understood everything he said. He basically said, the, he goes, the picture of Jesus in our church. That's who I saw when I was at the bottom of the pool. He told me to go home.
Oh, I'm gonna start crying.
And so it's just God has a plan for him, but he's always been my fighter. From that moment, we had to fight to get him into speech therapy. Um, we had to like I just kept calling around getting him to speech therapy. He does weekly therapy. He has an IEP in school because initially they just told us it was a speech delay. And I'm like, no, there's more going on here. And so that took a fight. And then we got him diagnosed. And so he does therapy, but still like he has to work hard, like to take in what comes into his brain, break it down so he understands. And like things don't come easy for him. He still doesn't say things um, in perfect grammatical format because his brain still jumbles up stuff. But he works so hard and he works extra hard to get to where he's at now in his sports. It like truly inspires me because he doesn't give up. The kid doesn't give up. So like he set the tone for me. And so why would like I would never allow myself to give up on anything because he's doing it. And
Wow.
he's doing it at such a young age.
Mm,
So
powerful story, and a true testimony of God's faithfulness to us also.
yeah.
And
And
I'm
I mean,
so,
still to this day, going back to I'm sorry I lost sidetrack, but like I still like I'm in prep and I do his weekly therapy every Thursday with him and you know I get everything ready for like everything for him. Like if he has a project, I highlight certain things. Like no matter what I am in life, whether it's life mode or if I have to take a step back or I'm in prep, whatever's going on with my kids, I'm going to do it. Like no matter what, they're always going to come first. If something happens and it pushes back my show, then it pushes back my show, whatever it is. But my family is always going to come first, no matter what.
mm, yes, there's no world in which you would be distracted from your family due to a prep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like that, that experience unfortunately is so common for so many people too. I mean, that's how so many drowning incidents and
Yeah.
accidents happen. And
Yeah.
a lot of parents say the same thing you are saying, like, I never take my eyes off them. And then it happens so fast. And the fact that he survived that and he came out even stronger and such a fighter is so amazing. Um, and he had his own come to Jesus moment too. When your husband got him out of the pool, did your husband resuscitate him?
No, so I tell people all the time, it's like slow motion. So I know. So my husband pulled him out of the water, um, laid him on the ground. He yelled help. Um, and then I like took him and I just like turned him over and I just like hit his back. And in that moment, then I don't really remember. It was like slow motion around me. My one neighbor was a nurse, but I don't think he needed resuscitation. I think this was all God's work. Like he came to, um, and someone's like, he said, Mama. And so I just ran to him and the emergency personnel, they were there in the matter of minutes. So I didn't care. I was in a bikini. I just picked him up and we went. And my husband stayed and made sure my daughter was okay and set her up with neighbors. And then he came to the hospital. But um, again, it's still all kind of jumbled. This is the pieces that I do know. Um, but yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us and the testimony that comes with that and your own journey through that as well, and how your son inspires you, how your daughter inspires you. You've become more and more vocal and vulnerable with your emotions and experiences over the years when sharing your journey. What have you noticed change for you personally, or even change around you from your own decision to be more open?
I think it's led to other people wanting to be more open to. For so long, I hid when I decided to compete. Only my small circle knew, and that's when I lost one of my older friends. But I also hid the fact that I was competing because, like, maybe I didn't want people to view me a certain way. But now I'm like, no, I this is who I am as a person. But I'm just, I don't know. I'm I'm an open book. And so if I can inspire one person, or if someone's story is similar to mine, but they don't know how to share it, like maybe I can help them lead by an example, and then they can then share their story or whatever the case is. But, I also want again, my daughter, my son, my family, but I I'm doing all of this for the greater good for them, so they know that their mom is strong. I'm no longer gonna like dim who I am as a person. And if you don't like what I have to say or what I'm sharing, or you want to try to bring me down, okay, that's on you. There's no ill will against you. But I don't again, I'm not doing this for clout or anything like that, or to get sponsorships or anything like that. Like, I'm just being who I am as a person and sharing my journey because I love this journey so much. Um, but I continue to get stronger mentally. And I wasn't that for the longest time. And I'm not,
Yes.
now that I am strong and confident with who I am as a person, I'm going to continue to be that person.
If you're looking for competition heels, jewelry, and fun competitor extras, then visit shoefairyofficial.com and use code Celeste for a discount at checkout. What do you think ultimately developed that confidence in who you are?
I think understanding what I'm capable of doing.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't, I've done so much for myself, but it wasn't until I fully acknowledged, like, you know what? I did this. I got two masters. I built my business from the ground up. I did this, but I don't necessarily think I ever really looked at it and my success. And then I'm like, wait a second. No, I know what I'm capable of doing.
Mm.
I know what, like, you can be capable of doing it yourself too.
Well, let's talk about your passion for supporting children with autism and your business. What inspired you to start that business? When did you start that business?
Yeah, so I I became interested in the autism field when I was actually my first year in college. Didn't really know too much about it, but I worked at a daycare just on the side for extra income. And there was this one individual in a different classroom that I worked in, but he would always run down to my room. And for some reason, he just gravitated towards me. Again, I was like, what's wrong? I asked the director, I'm like, if you don't mind me asking, what's wrong with him? Because he didn't talk. He was like 4 or 5. And she said, oh, he has autism. And I'm like, I'm not too familiar because at that age, like those moments, they didn't really talk about autism. It wasn't really a thing for me. And so I just started researching and I was like, okay. And so I got a basic degree in psychology, graduated. And then when I left college, I worked as a therapist. I moved to Pittsburgh, worked as a therapist where we did therapy to children on the autism spectrum. And that's when I learned about the behavior analysts, coursework and all the things. I went to graduate school and it was just like seeing the kiddos that I work with, and progress is so different for everyone. And especially for kiddos on the autism spectrum, because the autism spectrum is such a large spectrum. So you can never say this kiddo, because he started talking, this kiddo is going to talk. That's not how it works. But just seeing any little progress and then seeing what it did for the family and what we were able to help them do for their kids, that was rewarding. Um, and so when, I left graduate school and then I moved to Atlanta because my husband was living there. Um, I again did the same work and then I did get my certification to become board certified. And I was still working, but I had my daughter and then I went back to work and I was working so much that I felt like I missed out a lot on her in her early years. That when after I had my son, I actually started my business when I was on maternity leave with him. And that started off like really small, but I worked double with him. Like I would left the house at 6 a.m. to start for my clients and my business while working for the other companies that I work with. But I did it for the long term wise because I wanted the capability to not miss out on anything for them while still doing what I loved and helping kiddos on the autism spectrum and delivering quality services. Like that's my mission. I want to help as many families as I can while delivering quality services, not quantity services. I don't care about the number of clients I have, whatever. I don't care about the money. I care about what can we do for our clients. And I don't know. It's just something about those kiddos on the spectrum where whether they're verbal, nonverbal, um, if they hit you in their face, just like they don't know any better and that's their way of communicating and just helping them. I don't know. It's all about just the need to like help others and just when they say one word or they're able to pour themselves a bowl of cereal. Something
Mhm.
little things that we take for granted are so huge for them. It's it's really good to see and it was such a huge reward.
It's really cool to hear you talk about what you're passionate about and how natural of a progression that was for you through your career and in building your business as well and what you offer. Can you tell us what you think is most misunderstood about autism?
Think so there's like a couple things. There's definitely in this field where people view what I do, ABA therapy, as something negative. Like we're treating our clients like they're animals because we provide a little piece of candy if they do something good. Um, but we're shaping behavior. If we want good behavior to happen more frequently, then we're going to reward that behavior.
It's no
So,
different than any therapy with
yeah.
reinforcement, whether that reinforcement is a piece of candy or it's a pat on the back or it's taking away a chore or it's adding a video game hour. It's the same.
So I get that's been like a controversial argument against what I do, ABA therapy. Um, but I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry too. I interrupted you. So, what's misunderstood about autism?
Yeah, so I think too, like sometimes like people who don't understand autism, they're like, oh, you know, they're just like, why can't they do this? Or why can't they do this? Or um but they don't the brain works differently. Or I think especially in when we're teaching our younger generation to accept autism. It's like these kiddos are no different, by the way. Like just because they may not process things the way we process, that they're not different. And I think also too, like people view these individuals as different when they're not. They just learn differently.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. In some ways, I think the most fascinating thing to me is how many people who are on the autism spectrum have like a special interest.
Mhm.
That fascinates me a lot. Do you happen to know what drives that?
No, I think it's more of it can be like an two different scenarios, maybe. Like it can be just like part of their obsessive compulsive disorder that often we see in individuals with autism. And so maybe that's where some of that specific interest comes into play. Or they're just like savants and they're uh, really good in certain situations and or whether it's electronics or whether it's cars or things like that, but it could also just be um a coping mechanism too. Like they're really interested and they have these really big interests and in things like that's what they go to when they're feeling extremely overwhelmed too.
Mm, forgive me if this question comes across poorly, but have you seen a negative impact from the almost heightened or glorified promotion of having autism online? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, everybody's got autism, everybody's posted. Like, have you seen a negative impact on those who really need the support?
I don't necessarily think I've seen a negative impact. Well, I do have a certain opinion on kind of I don't want to glorify. If you were diagnosed with autism, I'm glad you're speaking about it and you're advocating for the community. But just because you have autism also doesn't justify your behaviors in certain situations, like which I've seen on social media. Oh, well, I have autism. No, you still shouldn't act a certain way. And that's why, my job too is also to teach socially significant behaviors and to reduce those negative behaviors. And so I think sometimes, although you may have autism, that's not an excuse for why, or, to kind of say, oh, well, it's okay, then you have autism. So it excuses your behavior.
Can you explain what makes a behavior socially acceptable?
Yeah, so it's just what I like to like do they socially acceptable behavior. I like to like explain that it's a way where you can go out into the community and you can look typical, or it's not viewed as taking your clothes off in public as an example is not socially acceptable behavior. And
Yeah.
I have plenty of clients that like to disrobe themselves in public. So we just try to work on what's going to make you look as typical to your peers as possible while not diminishing some of these things that make you who you are. There's certain situations where you have to abide by like community standards, and that's what I mean by socially acceptable behavior.
Do you think that's where a lot of parents get hung up too, of like, how do I encourage this amazing, gifted, and beautiful individual, this unique person who is no different than anybody else, but then take them out and make sure that they also don't showcase some of the things that make them appear very different from everybody else?
Yeah, so the clients that we work with, we just listen. If there's a certain, like, if you have a certain place in his at home where this so and so client can act a certain way or do certain things that kind of help him regulate, by all means, that can be his time. Like we have a protocol where we have kiddos that script a lot. And so sometimes we do like a red card, green card. Oh, it's green. So now's your time where you can script. And what I mean by sometimes they just script shows out loud. But oh, it's red. So let's try to refrain and have some self-control, whether because you have to, if you go into school, you can't be doing that during learning times. It disrupts your time learning, but it disrupts other kiddos' learning abilities and things like that. It becomes a distraction. Or um, we also just tell families like, hey, like, is this really a behavior that is going to impact like them making relationships or their future of trying to get a job? And we just try to have like recognize what when and where is appropriate, but also recognize, is this a behavior that really we want to diminish or something that we can just let go?
So now, pop culture question. What do you think of the show Love on the Spectrum?
I've only watched pieces of it just because I haven't had time to really sit down. But I think it's a great thing to have like individuals share their story. Like I like seeing how these like I watched something in the past like relationships and dating and because we can only describe, like for myself, like what I see on the outside. They're living it firsthand and they can, you know, describe what they're feeling inside, whether they want to engage in what we call a self-stimulatory behavior. Like, why are you doing that? Like, we can only come up with a hypothesis.
Mm.
Whereas they can say, well, this is how I'm feeling inside, and this is why I do it. So I think it's a great tool to have someone on the spectrum basically tell their side of their story.
Yeah, I think you would love, like, if you get the opportunity to watch all of it, you'd probably love it. But even just from what you have seen in your commentary here, I think that's just a really great way of putting it. There's so many people in this world, and social media, television, media outlets has allowed us to engage with, see, and almost experience life through somebody else's eyes. And I think it's a really special thing and brings a lot of awareness and understanding. And much like we're doing on this podcast right now, talking about competing, talking about motherhood, talking about challenges of mental health, talking about behavior therapy that you do. I mean, all of it. It's really special to be able to share these things. Now, your passion is so obvious and so clear. And I want to shift gears if that's okay with you. Okay. So I'd love to just hear before I get into your best advice. I want to know about your pro debut coming up. Like, what are you working on right now? Or do you have a show date? You don't have to share it if you do, but yeah, of
Yes, I kept it quiet just because I'm like, what if it doesn't happen,
course things can come
Um,
up.
but I did just, register. I did just get the approval for the contract. So we are a week and a half out. I'm doing girl power.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Is
So
your
we
family gonna be there?
No, unfortunately not. My daughter has a lacrosse championship like tournament that weekend. And then my son has a baseball tournament. So my husband helps coach his team. So and I need someone here for the kids. So I am going by myself, which is fine. My team
That's
will be
fine.
there. I'll have a team there. So and hopefully, my son isn't in the middle of the game so my husband can stream it and watch stuff like that. But nope, that's my pro debut will be girl power.
That's so exciting. Oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
is
I was
awesome.
scared we were gonna have to pull out because of spring break and my illness and things like that, but we're making
How'd
it
you
work.
power through? How did you decide, okay, no, I think we're good to go?
Well, I just whenever I was able to hold food in, I just ate and I met with my coach in person and we did posing and she's like, I think we can pull it off. We're still trying to fill out because I did lose some weight, but we're rolling with it.
Hey, I would honestly rather go into a show needing to fill out than
Right,
not.
right. Yeah, I mean, it just allows me to eat versus like scramble. So,
Exactly. Yeah, which sometimes can lead to like inflammation or this mental feeling of like, am I gonna get there?
yeah.
So that's so exciting. It's gonna be awesome. And honestly, I think it's great that you get to go to that show alone. I know we'd love having our people there, but I've done some shows alone and I've enjoyed those experiences. And plus you have your team there and it's a women's event. So that's gonna be super, super awesome. Now, are you doing the open or you're doing
No,
master?
I'm just sticking to masters. I think, being natural and I'm on the smaller end of the spectrum. I just think masters is where I would be best at. Would I love to compete in open? Absolutely. But these women are phenomenal and their physiques are phenomenal. And I don't think I can hang with them right now. Not at almost 43. And I'm
I
okay
get
with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
you gotta be okay with it. You accept it. You're like, okay, I know where I belong and I'm competitive and still being pushed, and where maybe it isn't in my range or my expectations. Like I know for me as a natural competitor too, I'm like, I'm sticking to the natural shows this year. And if you put me next to other natural bikini competitors and natural bikini pros, you could go, oh, yeah, that looks right. Like that's comparable. But you put me next to someone who's not natural, especially if you look at the professionals who are not. It's almost a different division.
Yeah. It's like a hybrid. I joke around. It's like a
Yes.
hybrid between wellness and bikini. Like if they had a baby and but they all look great. It's just
Yep.
natural and I can't
Yep.
hang there. I can't develop that type of muscle, especially at almost 43, no matter how hard I work. So,
Yeah, well, you're crushing it though, and you've certainly grown a lot since you started. And it's just been amazing to learn from you today. And I'd love to end by getting your best advice. So, what would be your best advice for somebody who has never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
I think first, if you want to compete, get a coach that you vibe with, that you can trust, no matter what. Like whether you, I don't want to necessarily say failed in a week for check-ins, but where something just didn't go your way. Like you can be completely honest. But I think going at it full force, understand that there's going to be obstacles that come your way, and just stay strong. Um, Pray on it if you are a person of faith, but dedicate consistency and dedication and discipline. You're not always gonna be motivated, but if you have a goal, stick to it because the rewards are so rewarding. Like the outcomes, whether you place or not, it's not about placing, but just the fact that you accomplished that and what you accomplished over your entire prep to get to your end goal, you should be proud no matter what. Um, but be confident. Don't be embarrassed of your journey. This is your journey and only your journey. So own it and do it with a smile on your face. Do it with everything you have.
It's beautiful. Love that advice so much. And as far as your journey and how people can connect with you and follow you, where can they do that?
So they can find me on Instagram, Sarah Bornemiss, IFBB Pro, I believe is my handle. Um, Facebook I usually use is like more of like my smaller circle, like just family. But social media, if they want to connect that way, DM me. I'd be happy to then, offer my email or phone number if you want to chat, but you can
On
follow me.
Perfect. And we'll put your Instagram handle in the show notes page. So you guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It is alphabetized. Not only will you see how you can connect with us, but you're also going to see a full episode summary, breakdown of the topics we covered, as well as episode timestamps. So you can go back and listen to your favorite parts or share it with your teammates, your friends, your family, let them know what stood out to you. And of course, tag us if you listen. Let us know what your takeaways were, or feel free to DM us and share your thoughts. It goes a long way for the show, but even further for the incredibly courageous women who come on and share their story here. So, with all of that being said, Sarah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And to everybody listening, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.